Alright guys, what's up? Hey, we are back on this Hummer H3 transfer case project. And I hold in my hands GM part number 88984525. And this is the replacement filter that we need for the oil pump inside this BorgWarner 4493 transfer case. Goes right there on the end of that hose, and we're going to get this thing stuck back together. So one other note that was just a question in my mind was the location of this spring. It came out when I disassembled the thing. I couldn't figure out if it went on this, which would be kind of like the sector shaft that shifts the transfer case. It goes on here. I kind of suspected it did, but I couldn't verify. I did look up the exploded view diagram for this transfer case today, and it does go there. So it goes between the aluminum shift fork that we're installing and the case half. So it made sense to me that that's where it went, just based on the location of this cam here that shifts the end of the shift fork. Without that spring there, there'd be nothing to return that fork to disengage the four-wheel drive. But that's where it goes. I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back together, put some silicone on it. We'll let that kind of take a set. We'll get this thing bolted back into place and see if we can get this pig back on the road. So that's where we're at. That's the job for the evening, and I'll bring you back here when I've got something else to report. Alright, I have spent a half an hour now fooling with the planetaries to get them timed and get everything slipped back together, and I am going to impart for you my experience. What you're going for is that. See the three timing marks? 1, 2, 3. All of them pointing straight in towards the shaft. This gear here doesn't have a timing mark, so I don't think its position is critical. But these index on different gears on both sides, so getting things aligned correctly, getting things timed so that it all slips together isn't super easy, and it isn't super intuitive. There are some other timing marks as well on these other gears. Let's see if I can spin this thing a little bit and show you those. Yeah, so see, there's one. There's one. There's one. And can you see it? Not really. There's one on the back side as well. Those are all pointing out at the same time or in at the same time. But getting everything lined up to where those all slip together and everything moves as it should. It's not super intuitive, and I didn't see a lot online about how to do that, so I figured I would try and capture that as well. So I've got this thing just kind of setting on some blocks here in my pan. My little redneck anvil. Got it all kind of setting up there. I'm trying to keep this thing as clean as possible. This shop is not the greatest environment for doing this. This is definitely not a clean room environment. It's not what I would like to have for doing this. It's not what I'd like to have, period. But it's what I've got. So I'm going to work with it. I think what I am going to recommend is that they put this thing on the road, use it for a couple of weeks, and then bring it back, and we'll change the fluid in the transfer case. It only holds about 1.5 quarts anyway. 1.6 quarts, I think, is the spec. Dexron 6. So it's not that big a deal. It's not a big expense to change the fluid. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm going to go ahead and slather this thing up with some silicone. Try to put these two case halves together and snug up the bolts. So I'll bring you back when we've got something else to look at. There it is, it's all back together. Case bolts are torqued to 18 foot-pounds. Went ahead and replaced the input and both output seals, and it is ready to go back in the vehicle. Part numbers. There's your part number for the gasket that goes between the transfer case and the transmission. It's part number 156-42511. There are your part numbers for the different seals. The input seal is 88996656. The front output seal is 89059515. And the rear output seal is part number 89059495. And once again, there's the part number for the pickup screen, 88984525. So those are the parts. I probably got a couple $100 worth of parts in this little project, but sure beats a $1,600 rebuilt case. So at this point, we've got everything all cleaned up, ready to slide it back under the vehicle and get it up into place. Alright guys, well there it is. All bolted up, back together, test driven, no leaks, everything works as it should. So just to recap, there are 5 bolts here on the flange. They're actually studs in the transfer case with nuts on them. You can kind of see one of them there. They just kind of go around the circumference of the transfer case. I believe those are 15mm nuts. Take those out and that separates it from the transmission. It just slides off of there. There are 3 bolts on the bottom of the skid plate. Those are 14mm or 9/16. I don't recall exactly which one I used. Get that thing out of the way. There are 4 bolts for the front drive shaft. Those are 10mm. Box end wrench or a ratchet wrench is really handy for those. Get those out of the way. There are 3 10mm bolts that go through the round portion of that shift motor, and one in a little bracket that is high on the other end of the motor. It just kind of stiffens up that end of it to the transfer case. All of those 10mm. Then there are 4 bolts on, let's see if I can get this so you can see it. Not really, it's bright out here. 4 bolts on the caps for the rear differential U-joint. Take those caps off, remove the straps, and then just pry forward on the drive shaft. It's on a slip yoke right there. So it'll slip into the back of the transfer case and allow you to separate it. Drop the back end of it down, just pull, that'll slip right out of the transfer case. So remove the drive shafts, remove the skid plate first, I guess, then do the drive shafts, take the shift motor off, unhook the wiring for it there, and there's a plug for the speed sensor, and then get that wiring harness up out of your way. Once that's done, you can take the 5 bolts out that fasten the transfer case to the transmission, and then wrangle the guy out of there. It's really not that heavy a transfer case. It weighs maybe 50-60 pounds. It's a magnesium case, so I just kind of wrestled it out of there by hand. I didn't use a jack or anything. You can actually spin it sideways and drop it out of there without removing cross members or anything. Makes it nice because you can leave the transmission in place. Just a note quick here is that this portion of the transmission stays put. So you separate the two here, not up here. Okay, Okay, there's a little intermediate piece here that's an adapter that goes between the back of the transmission and the front of the transfer case. It doesn't need to come out, so you can leave it in place. You can leave this transmission mount in place. That supports everything. You don't have to worry about blocking up the transmission or anything like that. So really not a terrible job. Very doable if you're comfortable with a set of wrenches in your hand. But taking this out, I've road tested it. Everything is working well. It's all back together here now. Four-wheel drive works as it should, disengages as it should. There's no more binding in the corner. You don't feel that grabbing and scrubbing as you turn a sharp corner on dry asphalt. Definitely disengages into two-wheel drive. And tried it in 4 high, tried it in 4 low. Everything shifts like it should. So we are going to call this one done. Bye-bye, Hummer. Thanks for watching.